Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. So, you turn on the news, right? And there's the President of the United States stepping off a plane in some foreign capital, smiling, waving at the flashing cameras. It looks effortless, a perfectly choreographed diplomatic dance. But behind that calm, polished exterior, oh man, it is literally the most expensive, heavily guarded, and wildly complex logistical operation on the face of the Earth. Today, we're tearing back the curtain to break down this staggering, invisible machine that protects the single most guarded person on the planet. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. The illusion we're all sold on TV is just a brief 15-minute city walk, a quick handshake with a foreign leader, maybe a friendly wave to the crowd. But the reality? That simple 15-minute stroll actually demands 4 to 5 months of intense planning. We're talking thousands of agents coordinating across continents and millions, seriously, millions of dollars. Honest to God, it makes the logistics of securing the Olympic Games look like a walk in the park.
So here's our flight plan for this explainer. First up, we'll look at the months-in-the-making phase. Then we'll cover securing the skies. Third, we'll hit the tarmac for the beast and motorcade, before heading inside for the ultimate hotel lockdown. And finally, we'll add it all up to see the true price of power.
Let's kick things off with Phase 1, months in the making.
You see, this whole massive operation kicks into high gear way before the president ever sets foot on foreign soil. The clock actually starts ticking right inside the West Wing of the White House. Usually about 5 months prior to a visit, top officials like the National Security Advisor sign what's called a presidential decision memo. Once the ink dries on that paper, boom, an advanced survey team is formed. 4 months out, this team is already on the ground in the host country, literally mapping out every single detail. By the time we hit the 1-month mark, massive C-17 Globemaster cargo planes are quietly dropping off the entire presidential motorcade. And 15 days out, a second advance team touches down to run absolutely ruthless mock drills, trying to expose any tiny loophole in the plan.
In the level of detail they go into, it is mind-blowing. The advance team doesn't just, pick a scenic road for the motorcade. They demand simple routes that take exactly 15 to 20 minutes, and they analyze everything, down to whether the sun will be in the driver's eyes at that exact time of day. And the airport runway? Absolutely non-negotiable. It has to be at least 150 feet wide and 10,800 feet long. Actually, back in 2009, President Obama had to fly out of Dulles instead of Andrews Air Force Base simply because the Andrews runway was only 9,755 feet long, just a little too short. They even extract samples of Jet A1 fuel from the host country, ship it back to U.S. labs, and test it. Add to that a mandatory Level 1 trauma center within 20 minutes of any location the president visits, and 6.8-ton anti-ram barricades that can stop a truck dead in its tracks at 80 kilometers per hour. It's intense.
All right, moving on to Part 2, securing the skies.
So, with the ground prep meticulously handled, the focus shifts upward. Moving the president through the air is this heavily choreographed 3-step dance. It all starts on the White House South Lawn. The president boards Marine One, which is usually a VH-3D Sea King helicopter. But they never fly alone. Several identical decoy helicopters lift off too, and they constantly shuffle positions in the air like a giant shell game, so nobody watching knows exactly which chopper holds the commander-in-chief. They touch down about 10 minutes later at Joint Base Andrews to transfer to Air Force One. And hey, fun fact here, Air Force One isn't actually the plane's real name, it's just a call sign. That rule was created decades ago after a commercial Eastern Airlines flight with the number 8610 crossed paths with a presidential aircraft designated Air Force 818. It caused massive radar confusion, so they changed the rules forever.
Now, whenever you see footage of the president walking to that plane, look closely at the aides trailing behind. One of them is always carrying a heavy black bag known as the nuclear football. And contrary to popular belief, there is no big red button inside. It's actually a black book of nuclear strike options, a list of highly classified safe locations, and, most importantly, a small 3x5-inch card nicknamed the Biscuit. That little card holds the authentication codes that allow the president to order a nuclear strike from literally anywhere on the planet.
But the aircraft itself? That is where the magic really happens. Cruising at 45,000 feet, Air Force One is basically a flying 4,000-square-foot mini White House. The plane is wired with military-grade EMP-resistant communications. That means even the electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear blast won't knock out their systems.
It boasts a miniature hospital capable of emergency surgery, 2 full-size kitchens, and naturally, it's physically escorted through the skies by fighter jets like F-16s or F-22 Raptors.
All right, let's bring it back down to earth for part 3, the Beast and motorcade.
Because, well, planes eventually have to land, and when they do, the president transfers into a legendary rolling fortress. Welcome to the Beast. This car is an absolute marvel of engineering. Built on a heavy-duty truck frame, the thing weighs over 9,000 kilograms. Get this, its doors are reportedly heavier than the cabin doors on a Boeing 757 passenger jet. The windows? They never roll down. They're made of 5-inch thick bulletproof glass that can literally shrug off AK-47 fire and bomb blasts. The cabin is totally sealed, pumping its own independent oxygen through HEPA filters to block chemical or biological attacks. The trunk literally stores bags of the president's exact blood type on ice, and if it needs to make a quick getaway, it can deploy smokescreens, shoot tear gas, and even drop a slick of oil on the road to spin out anyone chasing it. Plus, the tires have a run-flat system that lets the car keep driving for kilometers, even if they're completely shot out.
But the Beast never travels alone. It is the absolute center of a rolling mini-city. First, you've got the route and pilot cars scouting ahead for blockages. Then, a sweeper team of motorcycles clears all the traffic so the motorcade never, ever has to stop moving. Right in the middle sits the Beast, codenamed Stagecoach, and it's surrounded by identical decoy beasts. Directly behind the president is a vehicle called Halfback. This thing is packed with heavily armed Secret Service agents who ride with the doors literally open, weapons drawn and ready. Behind them, watchtower vehicles bristle with massive antennas to jam remote control signals and track incoming drones. You've also got the Roadrunner managing encrypted satellite data. And yes, even a dedicated hazmat unit ready to respond to biological or nuclear threats. The whole thing is just unbelievable to watch.
Up next is part 4, the ultimate hotel lockdown.
The motorcade's destination is usually some glamorous 5-star hotel. But let me tell you, once the Secret Service gets their hands on it, it is a hotel in name only. The entire building is transformed into an impenetrable bunker wrapped in 7 distinct layers of security. On the outer perimeter, you've got local police. The middle layer's locked down by paramilitary forces and snipers. But the inner core, that is completely taken over by upwards of 300 U.S. Secret Service agents. And the level of paranoia here is off the charts. They don't just block off the president's floor, they block off the floors directly above and below it too. They rip out the hotel's existing electronics and swap out the TVs just to ensure there are absolutely no hidden listening devices. They install temporary bulletproof glass over the windows. They even set up duplicate kitchens and full-blown microbiological food testing labs to screen every single bite the president eats.
And the biological security is so intense, it actually gets kind of wild. The Secret Service will not even let the president use a standard hotel toilet. Nope, they bring custom portable toilet seats, and all of the president's bodily waste, urine and stool, is sealed in special containers and flown straight back to the United States. Why? To completely eliminate the chance of a foreign intelligence agency analyzing the waste to uncover secret health conditions, medications, or even mental health data. They leave absolutely nothing behind. They even go so far as to control the local environment. When the president visits, the host country has to adjust dramatically. The airspace is locked down with strict no-fly zones stretching anywhere from 18 to 56 kilometers out. To give you an idea, when President Obama visited India in 2015, they completely locked down and sealed 71 separate buildings along his travel route, and even placed kite catchers on rooftops to grab anything floating in the sky. Local authorities will often sweep the area to relocate beggars, and in honestly one of the most bizarre security tactics ever recorded, because local monkeys were a persistent issue at that specific venue, security literally hired human beings to stand around and mimic the sounds of langur monkeys, which are their natural predators, just to scare the local wildlife away from the president. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Which brings us to our final section, the true price of power.
So, we've talked about the months of prep, the flying fortresses, the heavily armored convoys, and the absolute lockdown of both the physical and biological environments. So what does all of this actually cost? Well, the White House notoriously denies and closely guards the exact figures. But during an Obama visit, a report by the Economic Times estimated the cost of this operation at a jaw-dropping $200 million per day. Let that sink in for a second. $200 million a day. That is roughly equivalent to the entire daily gross domestic product of a small country, just spent to mobilize this one security apparatus.
And that brings us to our final thought. The sheer effort required to keep the leader of the free world safe almost defies logic. It is an absolute marvel of human coordination, paranoia, and top-tier engineering. But when you step back and look at the thousands of agents deployed, the extracted DNA, the hundreds of millions of dollars burned daily, and the complete disruption of entire global cities, you really have to ask yourself, what is the ultimate price of absolute security? It's a staggering human and financial cost, all just to ensure one world leader can smile, shake a hand, and walk safely down a street for 15 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the things you see on the news, because as we've learned today, the real story is almost always the one happening quietly behind the scenes. See you next time.